Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Monday, January 13th. You could probably tell that over the weekend I did no extra Magic playing, which is pretty much where we're going. So we have blue or red, and then lands, and then killing creatures. We're getting XP and gold for uncommon cards for every 1000 XP. This ends in 2 days, this rotation, which would mean something. I guess we play a little bit of ranked later on. We don't have any packs or anything, and we're just kind of waiting for the new expansion to come out. I suppose the store probably has not changed any. It just says things are going away pretty soon. It seems kind of unlikely that anything will change with the new expansion. And I'll say it straight up right now, if it is a case that the only way you can get the mastery level, the good mastery level of Death Beyond Theros is to pay $50, I'm just not gonna buy that. That's ridiculous. Like, I have not a ton of gems, but I do have a ton of gold. So if it costs like 50,000 gold to get the upgraded level, the upgraded version of the mastery, this level down here compared to the top level, which barely gives you any reward at all, which is the free level. Yeah, if it costs 50,000 gold to get the master pass for the next expansion, I'll spend 50,000 gold on it. Frankly, it probably would pay itself back even at 50,000 gold, or at least it would get pretty close. But I am not willing to put $50 into this game every 3 months. That seems insane. I know paper Magic is crazy expensive, but this is a digital game. They need to rethink their target audience. Meanwhile, this doesn't still say when it's going away, so you would think it's either right on the cusp of saying it's going to end in 48 hours, or this is going to be around when the new expansion comes out, and then we could do that and get 1,000 experience real quick, which would be better. It would also kind of ruin my concept of opening 50 packs, which frankly I could probably afford to open 70 packs at this point for the new expansion. I'm not sure the new expansion is really worth opening more than 50 packs, but it would ruin that concept if it does cost like 50,000 gold to do that. Let's see. Or even 40,000 gold. 40,000 gold probably be closer, equivalent to $50 worth of gameplay. So we've got blue, so that means we're going to play Azure Skies. This deck's particularly not that good, but again, 2 days, and then we do deck rebuilds, which means Wednesday should be it. Yeah, which is good. Not having a special day to do a special Magic Arena would be great. Since this will be my first expansion, it does kind of behoove me to probably be awake a little earlier than I normally am. I'm starting pretty late today, and see if the new expansions come out at like a 6 a.m. Eastern time or right at midnight. Honestly, I felt like that was probably the one of the big mistakes of Hearthstone, is that they seem to kind of have this 6 a.m. Central Time release reset, which seems to not really equate to like a 0 on Greenwich Mean Time or anything like that. If anything, it was closer to noon Greenwich Mean Time, which would equate to 6, 7, maybe 5 in the morning for people in North America, or the Americas in general. Just go ahead and play characters and draw cards. So you have to play this Jace Windu fairly close to the vest. Is what I've kind of come to realize. Is that there really isn't a great time to play this early. But then you also have to play it 4 turns effectively before you're kind of ready. Because it has to get a bunch of loyalty points to do its draw 7 cards. So yeah, if this new expansion came out at like midnight, that would be great. That I would be more likely to be awake at midnight than anything else. So let's quickly go over the accountability section of my videos, which I've just literally called it that. I was uploading videos all weekend, so I used that as a flimsy excuse to not really play any games. My server messed up, but then I found out that I changed the power cords and the SATA cord on the drive, thinking that some of those might be the problem. Doesn't seem like either of those were actually the problem. It seems like the replacement hard drive that I put in there is just kind of failing. I don't know if maybe it's the port itself or if it is actually the drive. And I thought that was going to be that, and that the RAID array was just going to crash, like, and burn, and that would be the end of all the data, and I'd just have to rebuild everything and start over from scratch yet again. But I found that if you rebooted the computer, it gave me about 2 minutes before it gave up and failed, and changed one of the settings. There's a fail mode equals wait that apparently is set by default. I changed that to fail mode equals continue because it was running into errors and then it was just kind of stopping. I also very briefly told it very quickly in that 2-minute window before it was going to fail and stop. I did about 3 things and I'm not sure which actually helped it. I told it to associate the second spare hard drive in the RAID array, or at least a couple partitions of that, to use those to be mirrors and replacements, potential replacements of the hard drive that was failing, which then started it down a process of having more replicas. And what's funny is it told me it can't do that the device was busy, which seems weird, and then it did it. So now now, like a day after I did that, it seems like the failing hard drive has just been by the RAID array completely determined to be completely unplugged from the computer. So it probably just failed completely. So it probably was a bad hard drive in the first place. It wouldn't be the first one of those that I've run into, for sure. So but even though that failing hard drive, which is the hard drive that was supposed to be the replacement to the hard drive. Alright, so we have 3, so we can do 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. That would use everybody. Let's see. So the drive seems to be failing, but the RAID array itself seems to be fixing itself, resilvering and scrubbing, and the numbers are going up as far as the number of errors it's found, and perhaps this is just a foolhardy attempt to recover things that won't be really recovered, but it'd be interesting to see what happens here. There's a chance that there's a chance it will actually fix itself, and then I'll just be in a position where I probably should just remove the 2 failed hard drives in the array, which will be the next step, and try and plug in some new hard drives in as spares. It seems to me like there is, since this is ZFS on Linux, seems like the hot spares don't actually automatically work, which is crazy, but that does seem to be the case. It seems like they don't actually automatically try to replace things. You have to kind of manually tell them to, which, that's crazy. It's definitely not what you typically expect. The one thing I'll say good about this deck in this game, playing blue, is that if you have a daily quest that says play a bunch of blue cards, odds are high. Like, let's face it, odds are going to be high that you will play a bunch of blue cards in one game. The other thing I did, besides by more miracle than skill, getting my server in a situation where it might actually fix itself, I took, for the most part, a break away from programming my electronic digital sign that I'm building, and decided to instead bang my head against a wall and try and learn how to do some 3D modeling to make a 3D print for it. And a couple of things happened that made that go like exceedingly well. And honestly, the first day was just incredibly frustrating, incredibly irritating, and basically no progress had been made, other than the fact, and this was a key factor, is that the components I am using already have 3D models available for download. So, because it's an electronic component, because that would be helpful information, almost certainly when they're designing the circuit boards, they can just export that into a 3D model, so you can see what it would look like and get all the physical specifications, as like what chip is where, how much space will it take, things like that. I don't think they have weight or anything like that. Unfortunately, those 3D models for the electronic components also were incredibly complicated, and so what I ended up doing after many attempts, first of all, I was trying to use FreeCAD, well, actually I was trying to use Cura, which is just a software that prints 3D prints and doesn't modify 3D models. Then I tried to use FreeCAD, found FreeCAD not very featureful and couldn't figure out how to learn it. Then I found out you could use Blender, and I've used Blender for like one little experiment before, and that's all I can really say on that. So I started using Blender and being able to import the 3D models of the components. I was able to build around it, effectively drawing a box around it and just trying to figure out how to use the software, which Blender is not easy to learn. It is not intuitive. It is really crazy. And I spent the entire day frustrated, and then the next day, after sleeping on it, and this does just happen to me, and I imagine it happens to other people too, is that after sleeping on it, the next day I had amazing amounts of success, and the model is now done, and it's not such a simplistic model that I was expecting it to be done. I figured I could have easily suspected that it would have taken a month alone, well, at least a week. I would say a week, probably, to make the 3D model. And no, I got it done, I think, in 2 days. Now, a lot of things are still up in the air, like, will it really 3D print? Will this actually work? Did I use the right part models, or am I going to find out that the thing I'm using is just slightly different than the thing I was modeling, and the important parts are in the wrong place? I could easily see having to print this a couple of times and just rebuilding it and making modifications, and even the act of making modifications might be another couple of days, because at the end of the day I did not really learn how to use Blender. I just got very lucky and was able to do the thing I needed it to do. And there are issues potentially with tolerances, so I could see it being there. I'm trying to put some snaps in it. I could imagine the snaps just break off completely. I could imagine the snaps are too thick, and thus the board can't actually snap down in it. I'm trying to avoid using screws, because metal screws would just be more effort, and it's not really worth it. Honestly, it wouldn't even be metal screws, it would be vinyl screws. Let's see. Turn target creature. Let's see. Guess we could attack with this and this. There's kind of no reason not to. Even though that's not really even the strategy of this blue deck. So yeah, I just had a huge amount of success. I don't own a 3D printer, so I sent the file to someone I do know that has one that will hopefully help me and do me a great favor and tell me that yes, this file will print, and yes, this file looks good to me, and then hopefully they will print it out and mail me this prototype thing. Now, that's not the final solution by any means. Once it's locked down, the design, I'll probably start dealing with Thingiverse or some other site like that and just have 3D prints mailed to me. And then if I hit a point where I can meet the minimums, I would send the same 3D model and hope that that can be turned into a plastic injection molded cast and have like 10,000 of this plastic piece injection molded, and that would be incredibly cheaper. But there are certainly still a lot of ifs before that happens. One in particular is that I'm using a development board that I probably won't be using at the end of the day, which will probably change the settings a little bit. And there's just a lot of questions up in the air. Let's go ahead and attack. And I still have a lot of programming I still need to do. I definitely have spent a day or two in the programming just moving functions around and trying to get things to work and trying to get all the settings to work. Trying to set it up so that it can auto update and maybe auto apply settings. I think that might also be helpful. Although for that to work, then there'd have to be some kind of MAC address associated with it that there's no easy way for me to get the MAC address off of these chips and print like a sticker and then put a sticker with a MAC address on it. At least as far as I can tell. Although in the workflow that very possibly might be exactly what has to be done anyways, is that we just have a automatic installation process where you plug the device in, it spits out a number, that number goes to a sticker printer with like a QR code or barcode of a MAC address. I haven't put any thought as far as like getting actual UPC codes and selling it through a store that way. That would be much later in the game if it actually got in stores, and so that's a UPC code would definitely not coordinate to like a serial number or a MAC address or anything like that. So that's not a high focus. Alright. Let's see. Magic Arena says on January 16th at 8. On January 16th at approximately 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 15 UTC, they will be doing scheduled maintenance for about 3 hours. This is, I imagine, when they would be putting in the new version of, they're deploying version 1.04.00, which I imagine is the next expansion, or preparation for the next expansion. So that kind of does say that they aren't expecting to release it until the new expansion until about noon. Which kind of sucks. We don't have a ton of games that came out over the weekend, which is kind of good because last week we were last week falling further behind every stream. So yeah, I plan on, after today's stream, which won't be super long, to take a little bit of a break, and then I've still got some scheduling, some uploading to do, and the uploading is a good excuse to get back to some programming. I'd like to get the networking part and the calendar part, the main part of it, in a much better situation than it is, because that code has just not been even written yet, and it should have been written by now. I've gone off in some side directions, but if I can get a functional device that's ready to go and can auto update, that would be great. It could certainly be helpful. Because that means I could deploy some of these and see how they're practically being used, and give them to people and say, hey, test this out for me. That's where the valuable feedback will be. That's where potential feature requests will be, and as long as the updates can work, that would be great. Alright, well, this sucks. Oops. This. Didn't know it back. But yeah, currently at this point, it's not a fully running, even in its prime function. Which is a problem. Unfortunately, looking at the news, I think we're going to be set with Eurogamer a couple of years ago tried to post a article about The Witcher, frankly, every couple weeks, and so the year Witcher 3 came out, they were talking about it non-stop, just obsessed with it, and that's one thing I don't want to see in mainstream video game journalism, is just game fanboyism. I don't think that's helpful or informative. I don't think that's really professional. As much as I might say something like, I love the Portal series, it's one of my favorite games, that's really all it needs to live up to. And I've never been able to get around to listening to the Giant Beast cast because of their new ad download things, which honestly, this may have just saved me. Their actions literally may have just saved me ever having to deal with listening to the Bombcast or the Beastcast again. Let's see. Let's see, what do we want to do here? Probably doesn't matter what we do. Nope, didn't matter one bit. Yeah, I forget what I was even talking about. Lost my chain of thought there. The world boss on Destiny Child is done, which I did not get that character. I spent a ton of gems, like 20,000, 40,000 gems, which are the premium currency. I didn't spend money, thank goodness, but I guess we could play red spells, or we could stick with blue. Let's just stick with blue and see if we can gain some better understanding of the blue style card game. I don't think really we can. I think we'll probably end up just getting rid of it. I'll tell you what, one more game of blue and then we'll move on to red. Yeah, we don't have a ton of news, and it does seem like we are going to get Witcher news nonstop. This time from TechRaptor instead of Eurogamer, because I've long since stopped listening to Eurogamer. But yeah, I was trying to make a parallel that Dan Reichert probably is a great example of video game fanboyism, who really only wanted to do things or talk about things, talk about a handful of games, Mario Party and Metal Gear games, and yeah, he really wasn't, at least unless he was writing articles, he really didn't seem like he was reviewing any games or being handed any games to play or actually playing any games if he was being handed them. And it's kind of crazy that it wasn't fired. I kind of respect Giant Bomb and more if they had said, Dan just has not been doing his write-ups, and we're laying him off for that. But they clearly don't have what they call write-ups, which is you've got to write up an article based on at least one game, 1, 2, maybe 3 games a month. And it does seem like if you were to just kind of measure their month-to-month output as far as content, unless they're putting a lot hidden behind that paywall or a lot in written form, it does seem like they barely cover 1 game a month per employee, per writer. And that even makes their podcasts really fall apart, because when they ask what people have been playing a lot of weeks, it's like, we haven't been playing anything, or we've been playing the same game we were playing the week before. Now, of course, this is the pot calling the kettle black at this point, because it's been probably over a month's time since I've played any games, and I need to get back into the habit badly. But I guess that's kind of it as far as the accountability section, so let's go into the news section. We're not really any further. Not really any further as far as the news. I guess in general also, I'm just saying, I spent a lot of time also letting Netflix run in the background, trying to relax a little bit, and I'm gonna have to jump in there and watch the Witcher series. Although I would highly encourage everybody to watch this series that's back on Netflix called Remind, RE:MIND. It's a kind of mystery game, mystery series where it's a live action thing where a bunch of, I'm gonna say, Japanese schoolgirls wake up chained to a table, and they have to figure out why they're there, and at certain points the lights pop off and people just disappear. So it's all very surreal. It's all very like weird, and so they're talking about what's happened in their life or what they might have done that had ended up with them in that situation. And the girls know each other, and they all go to the same school and such. So yeah, in a weird way feels a lot like an anime, and it may have been based on a manga or an anime, but I found the live action quite intriguing to start with as an idea. And it is certainly a show you would not see typically. Where, of course, The Witcher is going to be on Netflix forever. Like, there's no way that The Witcher series is not going to be on Netflix. Also, Lost in Space Season 2, with all those child actors looking like the same age as they were in Season 1, which aired 2 or 3 years ago, it feels like. Which can only make me assume that they had these people recording non-stop with very little breaks, so the kids didn't grow up and age out of it in an unnatural way. And then Lost in Space just required a ton of CGI, which I wouldn't be surprised if that is exactly the case, and they may have 3 or 4 seasons in the bag. It is also, I guess, kind of fair to say that the Lost in Space series on Netflix was before the Stranger Things series on Netflix. And so they may have decided to do things differently, because they definitely are doing the pushing Stranger Things as fast as possible so that the kids are not completely aged out of being viable characters in their own story. And if they were gonna do a Stranger Things season 4, which I doubt they will, they probably should consider jumping forward in time and replacing all the child actors with look-alike characters. That would be my guess, my best suggestion there. Is get rid of the kid actors, but then I'm not sure people would like that. And honestly, I felt like Stranger Things was just more Stranger Things, and I think Stranger Things 4 would probably be the same. They did tease a 4th season. They probably should just like stop. They probably should move on to something different. How are these guys not being blocked by me? That is my question. I would also like to see the Lost in Space series continue to be good. It's certainly not going to get its due at this point, unfortunately. That's just not going to happen. There we go. Can I survive a couple of more turns? Honestly, I feel like Netflix really has yet to prove itself as being a great curator of long-term media. I think there is probably an argument to be said that they can fund a movie as well as any movie production company, which is probably not saying a lot, but as far as anything that you would describe as a 4 or 5 season series, I'm not sure that they can really do that. And I'm not even sure regular TV channels can really do that anymore. Unless you're doing something that's like a CSI or something like that, then all those inevitably work fine, but everything else is kind of crazy. How many cards do I have left? Like 41. It really is. So we gotta block this, and then I'm gonna block this. Well then, fine, we'll do that. That's probably the best we can do. Yeah, if and this is a big if, somehow that's not right. I can only do 7. Which 7 is too many. So, oops on that one. It goes two islands. Yeah, if Netflix had something like The Mandalorian, and The Mandalorian on Disney, plus actually does go like 5 seasons, which I'm not really sure it will. There might be something to that, but I seriously question even if that's a true statement. There we go. All the blocks still won't be good enough. Still gonna lose. If they went a 5 seasons Twilight Zone, which CBS Interactive has Twilight Zone, and that doesn't seem like that's going anywhere. Well, that sounds like that's a good card. Suppose we could take a break here and let's just see what we are actually missing. Not collected in Throne of Eldraine. Alright. Things we are totally missing in Throne of Eldraine. Seems to be we're hitting about 7 cards per color, which there's 6 color classes, right? No, it's not even that much, because there's 6 here, and that's it. Like, there's 6 cards, so it's 12 per page. 12, 24, 36, 48. 48 cards are the only cards I'm missing. I have probably enough wild cards where I could craft a lot of these if I wanted to and have at least one of everything. Meanwhile, is there a way to get the number of copies you have? Doesn't seem like it. There are still a decent number of cards though that I don't have 4 copies of. I'm not sure you really need a 4 stack of all these cards though. In a lot of cases, these are just cards that you wanted one of to play with. But then in other cases, if I was expecting a long-term strategy playing Taste of Death, I probably would want more Tastes of Death. Although in my current black deck, that is my most winning deck, having more than one Taste of Death may not really even be helpful. It's not a strategy card that would be super useful. Now, if somebody had crafted very early Oko and made 4 of those with wild cards, they would be also sorely upset about that. But yeah, we mostly have everything. And if I was to then also look at where we are as far as every other previous set, which have not been a focus at all, I am getting wild cards from other expansions, or I got cards from just beginning the game. That there is a decent number of cards here that I don't think you'd want to come back and fill in things. I saw a Planeswalker, and that's an interesting question. Like, here's a Planeswalker from Core 20. I assume those Planeswalkers, even if the Core 20 are not playable, will get re-released in Core 2021, and then you'd have to get them again, or you'd have to play by some kind of local rules that says you can play Core 20 cards whenever, which Pioneer certainly is the new rule system that they're going with to replace Modern, which even Modern, despite its name, is not so modern. We don't need to play Red, so let's just switch over to Out for Blood and start playing Ranked and move on. It would be, I think, shocking to all, including me, if somehow they stopped printing Planeswalkers and they tried to kind of remove Planeswalkers from the series. If you were going to do something like that, you would have to build it up. You would have to announce within a year that there's going to be major changes coming to Magic, and we're telling you the name of the expansion a year from now. It's called Death of the Planeswalkers, and at that point all Planeswalkers cards are going to be phased out, which I don't think they want to get rid of the Planeswalker mechanic as it is. I could see maybe even making a gameplay mode where Planeswalkers aren't allowed, but I would say, frankly, you'd probably do better getting rid of all of the non-Planeswalker cards and having a new style of Magic where it's only Planeswalkers, better than getting rid of the Planeswalkers, because they are the newer concept. And because they're the newer concept, they've been improved upon as far as their mechanics quite a bit. And by that I mean these loyalty points on a planeswalker are actual health points that hold on in between turns, where all of these creatures, if they take damage but don't die, get fully healed at the end of the turn, which is a concept that does not make any sense if you come in playing from something like Hearthstone, or if your game is mostly a digital game.
So many new worlds, so many opportunities to get lost.
And particularly if Magic stopped focusing on paper Magic and only was doing a digital thing, it becomes a lot easier to have more Planeswalker characters with more individual health things that are automatically calculated than in the real world, where you'd have to put like a loyalty counter on each character. So like 6 marbles effectively on this character and 3 on this character are little stones.
Hold on, I'm gonna try something new.
Opponent can't gain life. Darn it. Well, that is going to hurt my strategy somewhat. I can't gain life, but say only slightly. Moving on with the news, Game Sutra has an article. There's a report China to further regulate online games and streaming the curve addiction.
Let's make this quick.
You can see it's not much of an article here. Reported by TechNode. Yeah, and we kind of knew that. Like, as soon as you knew China started to make regulations, it should have been
I just want to hug all those fire
fairly
critters.
obvious that they were never going to stop, and that this literally is just going to be a constant a constant made-up problem with the solution of them, the government, having more control, and regulating the personal internal lives of their citizens, and more importantly,
Have you seen my
them
hair?
having a
Well, let's set the
stick
world
to
ablaze.
regulate video game companies and businesses, and that may do something that irritates them. Now, there's been like one story in Japan of somebody kind of talking about gaming addiction, but it's some mayor
It's
somewhere.
elemental, dear. Oh, I just
so
want to hug all those fire critters.
It's not really a big deal, as far as I can tell, not being an expert in Japanese politics, but my general idea and understanding is that unless it's something that the Prime Minister really wants to have happen, not a lot happens and not a lot changes. And there are just a lot of politicians that are say a bunch of things
If you haven't heard of me, then get ready to meet my flames.
and don't really even do
Let's get
anything.
toasted.
They make empty promises.
I adore an audience.
There was another politician or teacher or something speaking against like the anime styles in Japan, and that's not gonna get them anywhere, certainly.
Fire can be
This
a
is
real
funny. You have
pain.
like Chandra Awakened Inferno, and then you have Chandra Novice
Sure hope
Prominence.
you can't handle the heat.
So this is the other thing about Planeswalkers, is that there's just like 3 different Chandras here, which is the same character, probably somewhat tied to some kind of book or something that they were trying to sell. Which, the fact that Magic is selling books based on the events of Magic is a mistake in my opinion. Like, it does show a lack of focus on just making the game great, and it does seem like there are definitely cases where Magic expansions and Magic as a card game just is not as good as it could have been because they went in some side direction to sell some other thing instead of just focusing in on the main product. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here, Light Matter Review, which looks like not light matter, it looks like control. I guess maybe it is light matter. Let's see what they have to say. They gave it an 8.0. Light Matter's puzzles are shockingly smart, and getting that aha moment is brilliant. A little more refining, and this might be a true first-person classic puzzle. Alright. Pros are funny story with fantastic voice acting, extremely smart puzzles, and perfect pacing. Cons are strange split between puzzle types, and the lack of physics made the world feel off. Alright, so I need to figure out if Light Matter is on Steam, and then put it on my follow list at the very least. Let's see. I'm going to potentially have to revise my opinion on Steam's release schedule as far as adult games, because at this point it doesn't feel like they were trying to catch up as much as they have just decided to kind of abandon the delay that they were putting in, or having just one person look at games that are lewd or that are adult in nature, and instead having just kind of allowing those kind of troll games and those kind of lower effort games that are selling on sex in as much as they were allowing anything else in. So what I'm looking at right now, and it's not really YouTube friendly, is a game called Shake Your Body, which the entire video is a 3D model girl doing a dance routine, which the animation rigging honestly is not too bad, and she's in kind of a one-piece leotard bikini, and it seems like that's mostly what it is it's just a 3D models dancing with some, here we can just show this, some catch the music notes as they move in VR. It's free, so I guess the price is right, and it's English full audio, but you can see the thumbnail here is showing some bikinis, and the other characters were dancing in bikinis here. This is alright. So this video is actually kind of highly polished, but the rest of the game looks very unpolished. But again, what I find most interesting about that is it does seem to be an indication that there is no holds being barred, or very fewer holds being barred at this point for adult games, because we're just getting them out at any random point instead of usually on a Friday in big batches. I suppose it could be that there was a lot of things and so they're playing catch up. It could also be that there's just a ton of things getting released in general. It would be interesting if there was some shakeups at Valve, but it would almost certainly be some employee or contractor shakeups that happened because of the new year, and there's like new employees with different mentality in charge. more than actual employees of Valve proper in Redmond, Washington, somehow being laid off. I'm just gonna attack with this, and maybe that'll be a mistake, maybe it won't, but I kind of need to do it. I can win still though if I can just get Bola Citadel on the field. So I'm fine. So yeah, that would definitely be different. It certainly would be different if every stream we've got just 1 or 2 adult games coming out. These all are gonna do a major amount of damage to me. Right. Let's bring that back. Problem here is I need 1 land. If I can get 1 swamp, I could play this. I could sacrifice this, this, and this. That would force him to sacrifice probably this, this, and this, and leave a 6/6 on the field, which would put me in a decent position. And then next turn I could use the food. Okay. Okay. I don't think that's gonna work. This is big enough now that I think I might be able to pull this off. Maybe. Yeah, ideally he will just attack with just 1. If he attacks with 3, that's gonna be a pain, because I'm gonna have to see. Alright, so I'm gonna have to attack, block with this, block with this one, and block with this one. Yeah, at best I can hope for a reset here. What happened there? I don't know what just happened. I don't feel like I should have lost there. Interesting. And we're falling behind. We're not having a great day for rank play. Next we have a game on Steam here called Go For A Walk. I didn't curate any of these games. This looks like it's just a low polygon asset game. Maybe you play as a dog. free, so I guess the price is right. English only. Full audio allegedly. Yeah, playing as a dog or fox or something. Yeah, there's nothing there. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Board Games VR, which seems like it is taking the concept of having board games, which we still kind of need a good board game on Steam, something other than Tabletop Simulator, which I'm not sure actually works great. Not to say that this looks like it would work any better. But then they put it in VR for no reason, so it's $19.99, which is a little too expensive for a VR game, and just something that doesn't work for me, and doesn't work for most people, because if there is any kind of multiplayer in any of the board games, that means not only you, but your friend then would have to have a VR headset, so you're talking $1,200+ worth of equipment just to play what would effectively be a $10 board game, even if you had an extensively large collection of board games, and even extremely rare ones. It still doesn't really make sense that you would want to play those in VR. I would argue board games probably should start coming with digital versions for free. Like, it would make a lot of sense if you went and bought Monopoly and it came with a Steam code for Monopoly, and Monopoly's not even good, but it would make more sense if that existed, if that was a thing. Or at the very least it came with like some kind of code for something on Android or iOS. Even if it was just like an ad unlock code for a free-to-play version of those games. Moving on, we have Cave Quest on Steam, which is just a match 3 game. Which, if you like match 3 games, there's still plenty of them on Steam. $4.24. English and a bunch of languages. Not anything that interests me, unfortunately. Draw a card. And put that on the field. And put that on the field. We've got this. We should be able to win, because we can put this on the field and then put this on the field and play both towards our solution, our win solution. Next we have a game on Steam here called Shine's Adventure 3 Sea Fight, which looks like it's kind of a asteroid shoot 'em up bullet hell game. It looks to me like it's probably a Chinese game, because this is just kind of all over the place as far as the art style. There's a lot of screenshots here of text. There's a lot of just buttons and things that look like mobile game stuff. It's $2.39. English, Russian, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. So might be a mobile port of a Chinese game, Japanese game, or Korean game, but certainly doesn't look great as far as the polish. The gameplay looked a little frantic, looked like it might actually be a little interesting to play, but I would say that's about it. Alright, well, do I want to let him attack or do I want to block? Next we have Toho Phantasm Dream, which seems to me like it's probably another one of those bullet hell witch shooter games from the Toho series, which I'm not sure is really a series or if it is just your concept of witches on brooms and bullet hell shoot 'em ups. Is there any actual gameplay being shown here? Just a really small amount. I feel like a lot of these games might have just been in arcades, Japanese arcades, and that would probably make some more sense if this was just a pachinko type game. English was not supported, unfortunately. It's $8.39 and it's Chinese only, which is interesting. So I'm still not certain what Toho really means. But I would also say the Toho style of games also never look particularly interesting.
Pirates and I get along because we're both cutthroats.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Excel X, which seems to be some blackened out models, so it can be an asset flip and an infinite runner. Well, I suppose they're just running faster and faster, and jumping and dashing and avoiding things. It seems kind of wacky. $2.99 English and Japanese. This might be a funny like mobile game, and it totally looks like a mobile game being ported to Steam, but I don't think it's a great experience. Right, well,
Keep your friends close. Kill your enemies.
alright, so we play this, and then get rid of that, and then see, sacrifice this for this one, and this one. Hope this is right, the right move. Then he's got to sacrifice 3 of his guys. And then we can put that back on the field and sacrifice one of those. Right. Meanwhile, we can play this, and we can bring back what do we want to bring back? This, I guess. I screwed up there. Would have won too if I had paid better attention, I guess. That sucked. Well, we're not doing great as far as playing ranked, so let's pull out of playing ranked and just try to play regular, and see if we can get more victories. Here's a shocking bit of news. TechRaptor has this article. GTA 4 has been delisted on Steam. The game has been removed unexpectedly. Let's open up a link and see if that's still the case. With no fanfare or warning, the game is no longer available for purchase on the platform, as well as digital download missing from Rockstar's website. Players who purchased GTA 4 already on Steam can still re-download it and play it, but for everyone else, the game is no longer available. I wonder if this was a music license thing, or they just didn't care anymore because GTA 5 and GTA Online. This would be, frankly, the first indication of a GTA series or Rockstar game being delisted. It also could be speculation of some kind of remaster or something like that. But I think we can find the answer fairly quickly if we just look here. GTA 4 required Games for Windows Live accounts, which to make a local account for Games for Windows Live, it was a frustrating and confusing issue, certainly. This also has DRM of Secure ROM, which I don't think works on Windows 10 anymore, and a third-party EULA. So I wouldn't be surprised if a new version, just a patched version of this game, shows up. On the other hand, as much as I may have thought at some point I was going to cover GTA 4, it probably wasn't. I probably wasn't ever going to get around to it. Let's be honest. They could easily, I think, in the GTA 5 engine, take all the stories of all the previous GTAs and just like remaster those missions in such a way that they run in the new engine and that you're just gonna have a better experience. Plus, if you had 4 or 5 different characters that you play as and 4 or 5 different like storylines that you could go through in some kind of GTA anthology, you might be better off with something like that in the first place. So yeah, I guess now the only way is maybe if you got a key, maybe if you went to the Humble Bundle store right now and got a key for GTA 4, you might be able to get this. See, they did patch out the game, some of the game's music in 2018, but I would say it's probably they're tired of supporting it, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is some kind of remaster in development and they just haven't announced it yet. On the other hand, this might be some weird way of them announcing GTA 6, which I doubt. I would more believe that they're nowhere close to developing a GTA 6, and this is what they're doing in the meantime. I'd be fine with never playing the GTA games, though. You could easily play the Saints Row games and have, I think, a little bit more fun. It would be a hard argument to say, no, you really should play GTA over Saints Row, which takes themselves a little less seriously.
Welcome.
I'd like to see the story or experience the storylines, but really just the storylines, the main storylines of the GTA series, not all the busy work, not all the garbage. Jeez. I am not having I'm not having any real success today. Check out, there's an article here. Tate Multimedia supports Australian wildfire victims, which Ubisoft Australia has also published that they have donated $30,000 to the Australian Red Cross. Bungie is supporting them. So Tate Media is the developer of Cow the Kangaroo Round 2, which that makes some sense. In the end, I think supporting the Australian wildfires might be one of the worst ways to support anything, because when you have extremely ridiculous conservative governments denying climate change, and that in part, at the very least, well, even though they did arrest several people that they claim have started wildfires, the dry conditions have definitely caused the wildfires to spread quite a lot more than they should. So it's a ridiculous argument to say, but it really is my opinion that Australia needs to get their house in order first. Otherwise, any money given to a charity is going to be probably less effective than you think it would be. In the same way that in the United States, and since I am from the United States, let me just put it on me. Like, the fact that the United States refuses to realize that people living alongside the Mississippi River are in floodplains and in danger, or the fact that we shouldn't build oil pipelines over natural preserves, and we shouldn't just do several of the other things we do that are the beginnings of ecological disasters. The fact that the United States refuses to regulate and admit those things makes it like just not helpful. Palpative, I believe, is the word I'm looking for. It makes it a situation where organizations and charities can only fix problems that will, after the problems happen and there's no one to stop the problems from happening again. California wildfires, same thing. The fact that they didn't regulate their better regulate and control their, or perhaps deregulate their electricity companies. But when I mean regulate, I mean by having actual standards and forcing the power companies to actually not have unsafe wires lying around. It's a problem. And so the California wildfires, every fire season, is just going to happen again and again and again until the people are fed up and they demand actual government action, and the government actually gives them some action. In the Australia situation, it may very well be the case that they've just ruined their country completely, and the Australian outback was a harsh, mostly desert-like, almost completely inhabitable landmass to begin with, and it seems like it's just going to be more that so, and the humans and the animals in the area may just be driven off to mostly abandon the island or completely abandon the island, which that's certainly a stretch, but they've effectively done that already. They only really live on the coast. So yeah, I always say check out the charities you're donating. Make sure they're actually doing good. Donate directly. I will say that again. But also, when you have such a massive crisis, and the crisis was created, let's face it, by humans who were either starting wildfires or encouraged by politicians denying that it was getting hotter and drier so that the wildfires weren't dangerous. I don't know how you fix that. Like, it gets down to the point where they very well may need to just have a German-style, it is illegal to be a climate change denier. Oh wow, they may just have to go extremely totalitarian on it and try and stamp out that idea completely. Because yeah, I don't know what else you can do. Because even if they stopped all the fires right now, my fear is there'll just be someone else that starts a fire. And frankly, it feels like this may have been intentional actions of some kind of terrorism of some sort. But the same thing happened in Brazil too, is that a bunch of farmers are burning down forests so that they can plant and try and make money from it, and it may have just been that there was a lot of slash and burn happening in Australia. Regardless, the Techraptor has some articles to, like the Australian Red Cross, New South Wales, Victorian County File Authority, and Wires. And video game companies are certainly virtue signaling by supporting these things. I would also say these fires are kind of a great example of you should probably focus in on your own local issues a little bit more, instead of an American trying to do something to support wildfires, which, I mean, that certainly is a tall order. Give me life. Block. Moving on, LibRetro has RetroArch 1.8.3 has been released. Big features: Angle brings OpenGL ES support to Xbox One and generic Direct 3D 11 draw cards, which I guess means if you're playing with RetroArch on PC, you would have like more support for drawing or better drawing. Angle seems to be a emulator. I haven't heard of this one. Is this? It's not Dolphin. Maybe Angle is to do the Wii U or something like that. Let's see. Angle is a middleware developed by Google that serves as an OpenGL compatibility layer. Darn it. It allows RetroArch to run OpenGL cores on the Xbox One. Oh, so what it's saying is that if you have RetroArch installed on an Xbox One, which probably is not an easy thing to do, if I was to guess, then Angle opens up a world of possibilities. As far as let's see, what do we want? Okay. Can we do anything? And we could attack, then you would have to defend. We could attack here and you could defend. Nope. Says what are the use cases for Angle instead of regular OpenGL? Well, it works for universal Windows platforms and certain graphics card. Let's see. There have also been some netplay enhancements, and RetroArch 3DS Race has been added. they've added the Neo Geo Pocket emulator called Race, R-A-C-E. Open Dingus, D-I-N-G-U-X, is now a supported platform in the future. I have no idea what this is supposed to be, though. I have no idea what that is. Yeah, some kind of Linux, if I was to guess. And then cores generally are getting improved, but those aren't mentioned in this press release. So it seems like that was very Xbox One specific as far as this most recent update, RetroArch. And certainly if you're just running RetroArch and LibRetro on a Raspberry Pi, you're probably not going to see any improvements ever. See, I can activate Bullish Citadel at any point, so this is what's ruining me. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Awesome Games Done Quick 2020 raises $3.13 million for charity. This was the Prevent Cancer Foundation, breaking their record by over $100,000. So yeah, the Awesome Games Done Quick does seem like it is doing a decent job as far as maintaining their growth. Oh man, I was not paying enough attention. The fact that it lets you do that without an "are you sure" is crazy. I guess I'll say Awesome Games Done Quick is doing fine. It does seem like it is gotten a little bit more corporate and a little bit less like homegrown and fun. And it does seem like after you've done 3 or 4 years of seeing all the Awesome Games Done Quick, you've probably seen all the games you want to see. And there is definitely a struggle for them to speedrun games or find new games to speedrun that are entertaining and new, and not just do the same like Metroid speedruns over and over again, or Zelda games speedruns, or Super Mario Bros. World speedruns. A lot of these speedrun communities, I suspect, don't really even progress too much, so they are kind of, it's the same person in the lead, and then it becomes kind of pointless to have somebody else who isn't probably the person who has the world record come and speedrun. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Solomon Program is the tentative name of Konami's next game, and by the looks of it, this looks like a demon with a spear, if I was to guess. So Solomon would be King Solomon, the wise king, who I think also sometimes didn't always listen to the Judeo-Christian God and got in trouble, is my general remembrance. Here's another picture, and you can see this definitely is a demon. But then you have this anime character here, which probably means that, if I was to guess, this is some anime-based story where you are game where you are controlling a legion or an army of demons, and this is probably the Solomon character, and it's probably a turn-based positioning strategy game, if I was to guess. But that is a lot of speculation on just one image and a tentative name. Next we have probably the biggest news. Xbox won't kick off the Series X or Xbox X generation with next-gen exclusives. This is better said that it is first-party next-gen exclusives. And I would say also it seems like they're going to only be doing that for maybe 3 years, maybe just 1 year.
Yeah, not really.
Which I think the realization here that's kind of pretty obvious is that Xbox probably doesn't have any lineup that they think would be system sellers. Looking in the previous generation of Xbox One and PlayStation 4 consoles, there really wasn't a ton of system seller games. Nobody wants to be where the Epic Store is right now and have all that backlash of exclusives, and almost certainly this decision is a direct response to all the backlash that happened, and a lot of that backlash happened frankly 6 months to a year ago when the Epic Store started doing exclusives. They may very well be trying to break the Epic Store in a lot of ways. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft was a little bit afraid of the Epic Store, because the Steam store has been fairly willing to allow games that had games for Windows Live in the past on those Steam storefronts, and you can see that there is definitely a perspective to Microsoft where Steam is okay, but Epic could be a problem. In particular, like, unless Microsoft wants to make a competitor to the Unreal Engine, they really don't want to see the Epic Store become so powerful that it has major sway over the comings and goings of the Microsoft, of the Xbox world marketplace. Like, if somehow the Unreal Engine said, we're going to charge twice as much, or we're not going to allow Unreal Engine games on the Xbox Series X, that could be a major problem, and probably a lawsuit. So instead, they kind of are just admitting what I think people already knew, which is that the Series X is just going to be a power upgrade, just a newer version of the Xbox One, and so they are just going to try and have a situation where they perhaps even annually just put out a new hardware revision, and then every time a new hardware revision comes out, it will just be a fully backward compatible improvement in the hardware.
Is scary, but underneath, I'm just a normal.
Speaking of which, of upgrades in hardware, like, having bought a brand new video card, I really should be putting it to better use. Like, the fact that I mean, the two things are probably not completely unrelated.
Thing to waste.
I would not be surprised one bit if I was just not really in a happy position after having to spend like $500 on a new video card that I wasn't planning on. So that unhappy position very possibly affected my desire to play games in a way. Like, there definitely were situations in the past where I've been unhappy working a job or at school, and even though you would think that I would turn to video games as a outlet, it often doesn't turn out to be the case, because if I'm not in a good mood, I typically don't want to play a game. I'd rather just kind of stew or turn my brain off and do something else.
I don't think you'll be needing that.
Man, this guy is just wrecking me. But I wrecked myself too. I just never had mana. Alright. Let's see. I'm going to leave the Magic Arena State of Game article until the end of the stream. That way I can save it or skip it. Game of Sutra has an article here. Control and Death Stranding lead the nominations for the 2020 DICE Awards. Which, let's see, when is that happening? February 13th, 2019. So here's a list. Let me just show you quickly. For Outstanding Achievement in Art Direction, they have 5 games. For Outstanding Achievement in Audio Design, they have 5 games. For Outstanding Technical, they have 5 games. Seems like it is pretty much the same games. It is kind of weird to be giving out awards, Game of the Year awards in February, but it kind of does work. Also, it makes some sense. We also have Outstanding Achievement in Game Direction and Game of the Year. I believe Olivia Munn is going to be one of the presenters at this year's DICE Awards, or one of the hosts, which it's been a while since I've seen her do anything, and it does seem like she and a lot of the old X-Play people, which, man, they're just completely out of the video game industry, almost all of them, which I'm not sure how in the video game industry they were to begin with. It really is kind of crazy though, how much has just happened over the past 10 years or so with G4, X-Play Revision 3, an entire generation of games getting coverage on like reasonably easy to see channels of some sort or media of some sort, and then that kind of all drying up and disappearing to the point where G4 I think turned into Spike TV and eventually just turned into the Paramount network, and all they show is a bunch of bar rescue, and I don't think anything else of any worth mention. Let's see. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happened there, and it's almost at this point just a false memory. It's like, did that really even happen, or did I just dream all of that up? Because it's so long ago. Just gonna go ahead and attack and see what happens. Gematsu has an article here for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Sword Art Online, Alice Asian Lycross, Asuna, and Alice co-sleeping scenes. Increase your bonds with each character to prompt co-sleeping events in game. So these are kind of romance / lewd scenes that you get if you go down the right romance path. It'll be interesting to see if these end up staying in the PS4, but they seem kind of simplistic here too. And the fact that this is getting pushed, it does kind of show that the game itself is not that interesting. It looks like it is just kind of a visual novel. A conversation that happens with these characters. I don't know this character at all, so she seems new, and this I guess is Asuna, but Asuna usually looks more like a redhead to me, so alright. There's a video here, and just in case it's not YouTube family friendly, I won't show that, but it really is just somebody lying down next to you and talking to you. Honestly, I think the Sword Art Online original series was at its best when the main character and Asuna were playing house and having this romance and this life that they were living as they were being trapped into a VR world. But yeah, the videos here are just the characters talking to you, just their mouths slightly moving as they are lying down. Which, honestly, that really is just so milquetoast, if I'm using that phrase right. I mean, so benign. It's nothing. I would have, if I was a parent, I would really have no problem with a 10 or 11-year-old seeing that scene and just being like, yeah, they're lying down and talking to each other. That's pretty much all they're doing. Now, what they're saying is in Japanese, so very possibly could be that they're saying something incredibly raunchy or lewd, but the imagery, it's not even like they were in extreme lingerie or anything like that. Right. So I've got all the mana I need, but I can't really do anything. So you're gonna take me out in one turn. If I play this, I don't know if I would have enough of this, so I'm not gonna play this. And then do this. And it doesn't matter, I've lost anyways. Tech Raptor has more for you. Chinese Nintendo Switch carts will also be region locked. Whereas I thought the story before was that that the consoles would be region locked and have their own eShop, which makes sense, but also the games themselves will be region locked, so everything's gonna be region locked. And I don't think that's a super surprising outcome. I had a weird dream where I was playing some kind of Switch game that was like a Mario 2D kind of Mario World game, but you started every level with just one heart of life, and you had to get like 5 pieces of black star fragments to get another life. And there was a lot of platforming and maneuvering to get from point A to point B to get these black pieces to get more life that was really only usable in that level, which as a concept in a dream would definitely be kind of like an expert level of playing Mario, where you're starting low and then have to get bigger. It's not too far off the most recent Mario game, where you start with 3 hearts and then you can find a big heart and get to 6, but they usually you start with 3 instead of just 1, and 1 big heart instead of like 5 fragments of a big heart to get a single heart would be really difficult. And certainly in Zelda you find heart pieces to expand your life, but again, you don't start with 1, and you expand your life permanently, not temporarily in that level. Which, if you really were going to have something like that, then that means each level would have to be particularly difficult, that you would need to do that or want to do that, and it would be quite a struggle to beat each level. It would be almost the opposite of what a 3D Mario game concept is now, where you jump in a level and fairly quickly, within 20 minutes, you've probably figured out a way to find at least 1 star, where if you really have to struggle to get to the exit, that would be a different type of game. Maybe not a better type of game, almost certainly not a better type of game for many people. And this is probably also an example of talking about a dream and being more fascinated with a dream than anyone else who's listening. So, moving on, we have a game on Steam called World of Tennis Roaring 20s, which I think I saw this on early access like a year ago. It's not on my follow list, though. I don't know why you would need a tennis game that was set in the 20s, and this certainly does look like it is a free-to-play with like in-app purchases game, and that's exactly what it is. Yeah, I don't see a reason why I would want that, or anybody would want to play something like that. Like, if I'm gonna play a tennis game, I want everything, or most of everything unlocked, or be at least everything unlockable from the word go, and I would not want to put extra money in something like tennis. Next we have a game on Steam called Mega Hassan, which I don't know if this is a troll game because it's a Middle Eastern game, or if it is just a platformer that looks relatively fine, that just happens to be starring a Middle Eastern named character, and one would assume is Middle Eastern character. It does look like this is a Super Mario World clone, and it only has 32 levels, which is its problem though. So it's free, and it's English only, and it's got a bunch of characters, faces. So yeah, I don't know what to say here. This looks like a fine free game, almost like a student project. There's as much reason why you would play a Super Mario Brothers style platformer as an Italian plumber as you would, as you potentially would play a Super Mario Brothers style platformer as a Middle Eastern character. They have no real connection. I could throw, if you were paying money for it, I could certainly be more critical of it and say it is just stealing a lot of the visual aesthetics and such, but yeah. And it's not going crazy. Like, I could see myself thinking, like, let's have a Middle Eastern character smoke a hookah, take a toke on a hookah pipe, and then get the firefly power ability, and then that would be more characteristic. But then that also might just be a stereotypical depiction too. So I could see people getting upset with that. Honestly, it really is just something I don't think you should touch, because we have the developers of Children of Morta being brought into their own country's Islamic Shia law, I think, courts, because the fantasy story they told was not Islamic enough. So even people who live in Iran, who presumably understand the laws of Iran, which I imagine aren't set in stone, for lack of a better term, they cannot swim that narrow channel of something that would be acceptable to Islamic law and not deemed offensive by somebody somewhere. So it's kind of forgivable to say that people are terrified to talk about Islam when yeah, it makes total sense to be terrified about talking about it, even if you are Islamic. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Knock Harder Useless, which looks like a top-down RPG. Seems like it's suffering from dark screenshot syndrome. Looks like it might be a bit more of an adventure, weird, surreal experience. It's free to play, English and Russian. It's probably a Russian troll game if I was to guess. But even if it wasn't, it doesn't look particularly interesting. Jeez, I feel like we're gonna be at the end of the stream in a few minutes, and I'm gonna have 2, maybe 3 victories. As long as I get the daily quest done, I guess that's pretty much it. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Blackbird of Amor, not Armor. And this looks like it's probably one of these Russian asset flip games where the animations are pre-made for something else or just done incredibly badly. Like, these all seem to me like they are probably stationary images, and this is probably a really, really terrible visual novel game type game. Let's see, they want $14.99. It's English only, so this might just be a terrible English game. But you can see all the images here are just pans and zooms. The characters are not moving. They really are trying to make this look like it's something more than it is. And it really seems like all it is characters standing in one place. Which I would have to say pass to that. Yeah, the actual gameplay that's being shown here is a completely different interface, and they only showed it for a brief second here. Yeah, completely different interface. Completely different game for the Blackbird of Amor. So, yeah, that's garbage. Next we have a game on Steam called P-Bot, which looks like it's just a fly around and avoid crashing infinite flyer, or infinite runner for lack of a better term. Yep, doesn't look particularly good. Honestly, looking at these screenshots though, I wouldn't have even known that it was an infinite flyer. This looks like a platformer. It's not until you see some of the contrast and you can actually see the plane in the foreground that it makes sense. Oh, so there is some kind of platforming element on it too. So again, 2 completely different gameplay styles, and neither one looks polished or good. $1.99, English only. Just, yeah. What to say? This. Definitely not having a lot of good games that came out over the weekend, but I'm not really surprised about that either. Let's see. Waiting for my turn so I can tilt this character so he won't attack. TechRaptor has the similar article, Call of Duty Modern Warfare Outback Relief Earnings Pledged to Australian Bushfires. There was also a game that I think mostly an unfortunate bit of timing released some Australian Outback themed stamps or stickers. I think that was Call of Duty. So I think that they've probably come around and said, yeah, we're gonna donate all of that money to a charity. Honestly, if I had already pre-made some art stickers that were Australian themed, if I was just going through all the countries and making stickers like that, I probably would just hold off until the wildfires weren't such a big story. Let's see. You're gonna defend or what? Actually I could have won right then. I should have just tilted that and then attacked with both of these cards. Did not think that all the way through. See, next we have a game on Steam called Clicker Age, which is just a clicker. Doesn't look polished or visually polished enough. It honestly looks a lot like just the most popular clicker game on Steam, just worse. The first version of that. This is $1.49, English only. Let's see if we can see it being recommended here as far as a clicker game. Nope. But yeah, this looks like a direct clone of Tap Adventure or Adventure Clicker or whatever that clicker game is. That, let's see. See if I can find the name of it real quick. Clicker Heroes. Yeah, just for a brief consideration, Clicker Heroes looks way more polished and works a lot better. Although Clicker Heroes is on the other side of the screen, which would just make more sense from right-handed people. We're getting cards. Just walk back in here and see. Still nothing really indicating that that's ending. So I think we're good there. Need to kill 4 more creatures and then we'll be done for the day. Or at least as much as I'm going to do. Let me see if this next game has enough images that are YouTube family friendly. Alright, I think we can probably pull this off. Next game we have on Steam is called Love Wish. This is a atypical image of it. There's a bunch of anime characters that you can see are usually sometimes in cosplay, usually in states of undress. There's nudity and sexual content in it. It's 66 cents. It is a puzzle game, a jigsaw puzzle game that's not even cut into jigsaw pieces, but instead into shapes. There's nothing really more to say there other than this is a interesting example of yet another adult game just seemingly being allowed through, or at least it's another batch of adult games which were allowed through after what seemed like a batch being allowed through on Thursday or Friday, and a batch being allowed through on Monday or Tuesday of last week. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Alchemy, which seems like it is some kind of 4-player strategy game. some sort where you're mixing ingredients and getting ingredients and trying to fill in recipes. It's $4.99, English only. Shared split screen player versus player only, no single player. Definitely not visually polished enough. Alright, play this. Play this. Play this. And do I want to attack here? Guess I can. It's possible that more games came out over the weekend and I just missed them, but I did my best, certainly checking the Twitter in between doing several other things. Next we have a game on Steam called Science Show VR The Abyss, which seems like you're shooting whales for no reason in some kind of submergible. It doesn't seem like it looks like it's a particularly interesting or good game. Seems like you're gonna have this targeting screen in front of your face the whole time. Feels like this is a VR game for no reason. It's $8.99, which is about the right price. And then it's English and Korean, which makes me again suspect that maybe not as well done as it could have been. Like if this really is supposed to be some educational experience, I don't think you would get a lot out of it. I think you would get a fear of drowning and motion sickness out of it more than anything else.
Our destiny is greater than ever.
So yeah, another Planeswalker. And I'm getting good cards still, and I guess I'll have to play again because I only managed to kill like one. Next we have a game on Steam that's called Spa Bee Taxi with some weird bee symbol, which looks like total garbage. $3.74 English only. I'm not gonna say anything more than this. It looks awful. Just a terrible color palette. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Puzzle Tower, which is a low polygon asset flip wandering around a dungeon. Although in fairness, this barely looks like a dungeon room and more looks like an office room, and this totally looks like an office and not a dungeon, so I don't even know what that is. And this looks like the top of an industrial building more than the top of a castle. So it's $1.19 English only. Nothing more needs to be said. You really can judge a book by the cover a lot of times, as far as some of these games. Let's see, that's not video game related, so we don't have to talk about that. I suppose it is video game news to say that the Hearthstone is getting the Galakrond's Awakening solo campaign later this month. 24-hour encounters, 35 new cards. I, at this point, do not have 700 in-game gold. I think that I could buy that if I wanted to. If I, for some crazy reason, wanted to go back and play Hearthstone again. I've already been fully committed to not playing Hearthstone, but yeah, it'll be, I guess, possibly interesting to, if we get some kind of feedback or results that says that this new expansion or this new solo expansion, since the whole Blitzchung thing has earns them a lot less money, or if it earns them the same amount or even more money, that would be interesting information also. It's totally obvious that some people did not abandon playing Hearthstone. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have abandoned playing Hearthstone myself just on the Blitzchung thing. There was also the 5 years of playing the game and just being burnt out on it. Next we have a game on Steam called Sanguine Soul, which looks like it's a game where you play as a mage, but when you're casting spells, it seems like you have something like this. If this is supposed to be a shield spell, it's also blocking your image, your view quite a bit. It seems like you're fighting against some kind of jinn or monsters in an Arabian type palace. In general, this doesn't seem like a terrible concept. It's just seems like it's missing a lot of polish. Honestly, I think you probably would do a little bit better playing City of Brass than this. This feels a lot like somebody was trying to make something like BioShock without having the funds to actually do BioShock. This game is free, which is surprising, quite surprising, and it says it has English full audio only, which is also slightly surprising. So perhaps this was a tech demo at some point, something that was that they were hoping to sell to someone else, a product that they were hoping to get more funding for, and they're just putting it out now for free because the work's already been done. Or, you know, maybe some of these games that get put on Steam are still tech demos and people are seeking funding for them. That could also be the case, although at that point, why not put it out in early access like everybody else? TechRaptor has an article here. New Batman game teased by Warner Brothers Games Montreal. I don't know exactly how you get Batman from this. Is this like Gotham's police badge or city crest or something? I guess maybe they have they looked at the name of the file and it was called Capture the Night. So will it be an Epic exclusive? Possibly. Will it be a 3D Batman game, or are they doing something completely different? Because that would be a question to ask, is this just going to be another bad Batman Arkham City continuation, or are they doing something completely different? Have they rebooted the concept in the series? They kind of need to do a reboot. For as reboot happy as the movie makers of Batman are, the video game makers of Batman kind of should start over from scratch. Like Arkham Asylum was great, but you can't just live on its coattails forever. I can't put this on the field until I have a white mana. I think that's the problem. TechRaptor has an article here for the Indie Game of the Year, which they were going through all of this. Options were Baba's You, Children of Morta, Disco Elysium, Hyperspace, Hypnospace Outlaw, Katana Zero, Outer Wilds, Sayonara Wild Hearts, Slay the Spire, Sunless Skies, and Untitled Goose Game. Disco Elysium was the reader's choice, then they gave 5th place to Outer Wilds, 4th place to Baba's You, 3rd place Slay the Spire. I could see that. I could see Slay the Spire generally being more popular than Baba's You for most people. Then 2nd place is Sayonara Wild Hearts, which I feel like that's a different style of game. And then Disco Elysium definitely doesn't have an indie feel, even if it is an indie game. So, I mean, I can't really say anything more than that. I can't really disagree with that lineup as much as I could disagree with several of the other things. OpenCritic has an article here. Big changes are being made to the Resident Evil 3 remake. I believe they're one of the big changes is no multiple endings. removal of mercenary mode. Carlos Oliveira will have a bigger presence in the upcoming remake. It won't be an open world, but it will feature more open spaces. So yeah, there's definitely seems like they're doing different things. For RE3's remake, which is fine. As long as it still feels like Resident Evil 3. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if DLC adds the mercenaries modes back in. And the multiple endings thing was really for an older generation of games. They want it to be a linear story. And in a weird way, they have to tell a linear story that ends up with them being back in Resident Evil 4 or in where Resident Evil 4 Remake, if that ever is going to be made, happens. Because Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 are the remakes of those games are telling a linear story in someone's mind, I'm sure of it. So yeah, they can't change too much, and I could see a way of doing multiple ending nods, some kind of collectibles, some kind of art, some kind of pencil art, or just images of the endings from previous games. The multiple endings in the Resident Evil games have been kind of joke endings anyways. If you're playing as Tofu, for instance, that's what I'm thinking about, is those kind of flavors. But even the Resident Evil 2 remake, still, I'm not sure it fully made sense. The story when you were playing it as Claire versus playing it as I think Leon, like, because different things happened at different places, and I don't think the story directly connects and makes sense. Can we do this? I think we can. All I need to do is not run out of health before I activate this. So, we need like one more character on the field, which we can do. And then we get an actual Bullet Citadel victory, which seems like we're getting less and less of those as people are figuring out how the strategy works. Let's see. Gametsu has an article here. Harakanaru Toki no Naka Day 7 second trailer. This looks like a visual novel series if I was to guess. Slightly different animation style. Seems like it's more of an otome, girls, young maidens type story, or high type story. Set probably in feudal Japan if I was to guess, or in an alternate Japan. How did I end up looking at a screenshot of the game Elix? I have no idea. I still have yet to kill all 25 of my opponent's creatures. That's surprising too. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Bunch of Asian Characters 228 Vampire Martina Bloody Day 2.28. I feel like this is some Japanese visual novel. I don't know if 228 is a important date that is getting referenced here. or a number that's getting referenced here. The game itself looks like it's a non-widescreen hack and slash game with visual novel elements too. From the looks of it, like a hack and slash beat 'em up game. It's $11.99. It's English, Japanese, and Chinese. Again, I feel like this is again a Chinese game of some sort. And not good enough. We are still running into a lot of those, and I think that's just going to be the way it is for quite a while. I can't see that changing unless the Chinese government just starts really cracking down on Chinese companies releasing games outside of China. Next we have a game on Steam, just a bunch of Asian characters. Looks like a Diablo clone of some sort. It doesn't look particularly well polished or good. English is not supported. It's a free-to-play game, Chinese only, so alright. We only have a few more games to talk about. Let's see if this next game can maintain its YouTube family friendliness. Let's see. Next we have Anime Girls Mini Jigsaw Puzzles. So these are jigsaw pieces, but they're incredibly small ones, and then it is just a collection of anime girls. By the way, this image is basically the same image. They've just shifted it a little bit and changed the hair color. And these images don't particularly seem like they're even from the same source or same artist. $2.24, English only. Still seeing a lot of those. Tag sexual content, but no nudity also. So be aware of what you're getting. Like almost certainly there are games on Steam, a lot of games on Steam that are trying to get sales by implying that they show a lot more, or they have a lot more than what they have as far as adult content. Gamma Sutra has the similar article. More game studios step in to raise funds for those affected by the Australian fires. Yeah, I imagine we'll see people making those decisions and virtue signaling companies using this as a good thing to write their taxes off on. Which, by the way, if you know anyone elderly, there is a new form in the United States for your federal income taxes for people who are elderly, called the 1040 SR Senior. It simplifies things for a lot of seniors who probably don't have any special itemized deductions or anything like that. It just makes the print a little bit bigger. It's probably it's a major change. If you're a senior, or if you know someone who's a senior who's just getting like Social Security and retirement that is just of a small amount, then this form might make doing their taxes particularly easy. Although arguably, if you're a senior and you just forgot to do your taxes for the last 10 years of your life, it probably would be fine. I'm not a tax lawyer, but I don't think anybody's going to come after the senior. Although maybe owing back taxes might affect inheritance. So if your parents are elderly and they're not filing their taxes, maybe you should help them file their taxes. Okay, what can I do? I can basically do nothing. And I've basically lost. So let's just, for fun, let's do it. Yep, I played too aggressively there. Next we have a game on Steam called Flag Fights, which looks like probably a capture the flag first person shooter style game, but honestly it just kind of looks like an asset flip first person shooter. Early access, $6.99, English only. Did I get anyone? Nope, I still need to kill one opponent creature. TechRaptor has an article here. Pokemon Go finally receives trade evolution and new Pokemon have been added, which is great. I'm still fairly confused about why only 200 plus of the Pokemon are being added back to Sword and Shield with the DLC. It probably just means they picked 200 because they could get 200 done. If that would be about my only guess. And then they're going to fill out the Pokedex mostly, if not completely, in another expansion. Which would be the right response, is to say we're just working on it, or we're definitely thinking about bringing back a lot of the Pokemon that you have grown to love. Next we have a game on Steam called The Sentinel. I mean, honestly, if they had just promised Pokemon and never delivered, they probably would have been in a better position. So this looks like a horror game wandering around the dark forest. Let's see. 1999. English, Turkish, Russian, French. That's an odd concoction of languages. See if we can see some actual video of the gameplay. Fly around videos, panning and zooming. Yeah, that run animation and the animation I'm seeing here doesn't seem like it's very smooth, so I don't think we need to put that on the follow list. Well, that brings me to the Humble Bundle, which, let's see, actually means I can talk about the state of the game as far as Magic Arena 2020. Let's see what they have to say here. Theros Beyond Death is coming. No duh. They're happy to announce that January 16th they will officially launching on the Epic Games Store. Playing through the Epic Games Store is optional, not requirement. You also share play queues with players regardless of where you play, and you're welcome to choose your preferred platform. Now, the idea that Magic Arena, which is a PC-only game right now, desperately needs a mobile client. The fact that they would go to the Epic Games Store is really confusing. It really adds nothing whatsoever. It's just like, if you don't want to pay money directly through our storefront, you could pay through the Epic Games Store, so Wizards of the Coast gets less of a cut, and the Epic Games Store makes up the difference. That doesn't sound like a good offering for anybody, including Wizards of the Coast. So it must have just been a stupid decision that they made. They go, well, we could do it, why not? But if you're going to do that, why not go to Steam instead? What this indicates to me, if they're going to the Epic Games Store, is that they're trying to establish better relationships, or some kind of relationship with Epic as a company, so that they perhaps get some support as far as developing this game in Unreal and porting it to other platforms. Which, let's be honest, Magic Arena, even if they're not going to make a mobile port, would do well to be on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation and the Xbox Series X. And getting on consoles would make sense, or the Nintendo Switch would make sense. Next, they have a paragraph here called Collection First and New Tags.
My plan is crystallizing.
They've added a first and new tags. When opening packs for the first time you receive a card in your collection, it will be it'll have a first tag on top of it, so that's super helpful. So assuming this patch happens before I open a pack again, that means when we're opening all the Theros Beyond Death tags, you'll say first, and it will be labeled as new in the collection. There are new sorting options in the deck builder, so you could probably have favorites and last played, so I could probably archive some of the decks or the original decks. There will be historic events, Brawler Days will come back, and something called Legend of the Arena. What was that? Right. Let's go ahead and attack all of these. Alright, so they have an updated roadmap. January 16th is Theros Beyond Death. January 16th is the Epic Games Store. January 16th is the Deck Builder Quality of Life. In development is Friends Messaging, Mac OS support, Ikora Layers of the BMOS, which I guess is the next expansion, and then Core Set 2021. I guess maybe this is known, and then a historic anthology and an updated tutorial. In concept, they're working on cube drafting, friend deck sharing, 8-person draft instead of bot draft, Pioneer set remasters, new, so this has been new, and Play Blade rework, which I imagine the Play Blade rework is reworking how this looks. What they're not mentioning here is going to Steam. What they're not mentioning here is a mobile version of the game. What they're not mentioning here is any intention or desire whatsoever to make the experience cheaper or improve free-to-play in any way. But they do have some things in theory they want to do. In actuality, they're not promising quite a lot. So then that brings me to the Humble Bundle store. Which, let's see if there's any Humble Bundle things. Here's a project management books, which probably wouldn't be a bad idea if I read one of those, but I'd never get around to reading it. I really hate reading print media. It's long-winded and boring.
Stay away from my
Although
brother.
I also kind of hate trying to look up Blender tutorials and being suggested YouTube videos of voice-to-text or TTS digital people trying to explain Blender, particularly when Blender is so complicated that you need screenshots and you need a full article for everything. So then that brings me back to my Twitter feed. Let's see. New Sword and Shield online competition welcomes Galar newcomers. We'll see about what that's about.
Your heart can overcome any challenge.
Riot Games set up Riot Tabletop to take another stab at board games. And they're making a game called Tellstones, which is a 2-player League of Legends game for tabletop. There's a game called Pinball Universe that came out 55 minutes ago. on Steam. TechRaptor has an article here. The UK game industry is set for growth in 2020. We'll see about that. Like, I don't even care about that kind of speculation. That's so pointless. Let's see. Just do no blocks. That's me. Nintendo is looking at, quote, interesting ways it can use augmented reality technology, which, in all fairness, that is better than looking at uninteresting ways to use augmented reality technology. An hour ago, Gamma Sutra has an article. Rockstar says defunct games for Windows Live to blame for the GTA 4 delisting. Let's read that article and see if there's any indication that they plan on putting anything else up there. Games for Windows Live has been a big hassle, and it seems like patching it out is more difficult than it should be. So I don't know what happened there that people were not forward thinking enough to go, how do we remove this bit of code once if we need to.
My plan is crystallizing.
Right. So here's the article. New Sword and Shield online competition welcomes Galar newcomers, which may be these two characters, and nothing else. Right. Let's do this. I can kind of win, but not yet. If he lets these two through, I can win. So here's a game called Pinball Universe, which looks like a pinball game. Doesn't look like a very complicated or interesting pinball game. And it looks like it is just one table, or, well, two tables. It's $11.99. I bought all of those pinball arcade games and I have not gotten around to playing any of them. I'm still glad I did buy them, but I am not super happy with my content coverage as far as playing those. But those were examples of games I really wanted to own, regardless. Not quite enough, but close enough, I think. TechRaptor has an article here. PS1 inspired horror Hollowhead director's cut is out today, which probably isn't anything of any interest. Let's see if we can see what this looks like. Yeah, this really just looks like a kind of low-effort asset flip horror game, of which I've seen dozens and dozens. Yeah, and calling yourself PlayStation 1 inspired is a pathetic way of saying your game looks ugly.
What an interesting creature. Let's see how you work.
Let's see. no timeline to show when it will be back on Steam. It does bring an interesting question as far as GTA
If you
4
wish
being
to surrender
delisted.
now,
Like
I
they have like
understand.
no timeline when it's coming back. So should I buy that? Like should I buy it when it comes back, or does it matter? Like that's an interesting question. And I'm in the one situation where it would actually I would be able to, without just spending extra money, since I have a little bit of money in my account, I think I could buy it when it comes back if I wanted to. The question is, do I want to? Like, how important? It's probably as important for me to own and cover GTA 4 as it is for me to own and play GTA 3 or GTA 2 or GTA 1. Those would have all been games, at least 1, 2, and 3, that I would have just spotlighted and said I have no interest in playing because the graphics are just so ugly. What unfortunately this means, though, is it isn't some kind of notification of a new remaster coming out or anything like that. So I suppose if it was delisted for like a year or so, that might change my mind. But if it's only going to be delisted for like an incredibly brief amount of time, it probably doesn't matter. Well, that's more than enough. Now we just destroy everything we've got. And hopefully I killed one of his minions. Otherwise I'm just going to do that off screen because we are done with this stream. It's pretty good Monday. I wish I was getting more views. I'm not gonna lie. I wish I was getting more people talking on the chat, but yeah, overall we're not doing too bad. As a YouTuber who's barely doing any work, this looks new. Although, arguably, unless that new patch is not done yet, these cards should be labeled new if they are new. Otherwise, I am just getting the same cards over and over again, which is possible. So I could play off screen and try and get 3 more victories minimum to get some more experience and some more cards. I wish they'd show the reward structure on these. Otherwise, though, there's nothing new here. And every 1000 XP will just give me another uncommon card. Which that would be interesting to see. Let's check that out before we wrap up. If we go to collection here and we just say not collected and collected, uncommons only. Start with not collected, uncommons. How many uncommon cards amongst all the cards available do I not have? Seems like I'm gonna hit probably 100, 200, even. There is a considerable amount of uncommon cards I don't have, and I have 18 wild uncommon cards. Yeah, that seems like 100, 150 that I just have not collected at all. And then in comparison, the ones I have collected, some of which I have like 4 of that may have been starter cards, but a lot of them I only have one of or two of. But again, that may not really matter. It's probably in the common and uncommon cards that most of the draft trash exists. So having a complete collection, particularly in Magic Arena, probably doesn't mean anything. So pushing really, really hard to get a whole bunch of uncommon cards probably doesn't mean anything either. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.